The first thing to understand about music is that it can be broken down into a bunch of groups and patterns. Okay, to illustrate this, we're going to look at Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven. Now, if you've never studied sheet music, this page probably seems foreign to you and may even be a bit overwhelming. But don't worry, I just want to show you a few things about how music is grouped into patterns. So, probably the first thing you notice on this page are these dark notes that seem to repeat. They're a little bit intimidating there. Forget for a minute that this is sheet music, and I want you to look at the whole line just as a picture. Okay? And do you notice that these three dots here, these lines, this group, seems to repeat here and here and here? Okay? So these three and these three and these three and these three, and then they repeat here again. All right? So each of these one little dots is called a note, and because they're repeating, it's actually the same exact note over and over again. So when you look at that, instead of this whole big line of scary dots, what it comes down to is that it's just three notes that repeat themselves over and over again, actually a total of 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then they change a little bit over here, but you can see that the pattern stays the same. You still have 4 groups of 3 and 4 groups of 3 here, and then there's this weird one that goes all the way down here, but it's still 4 groups of 3. And the point here is to understand that there are a lot of patterns in music, and from the very beginning, I want you to recognize that, because it's going to be a lot easier to understand music as we go along if you keep in mind that we're going to learn them in groups and patterns. All right, let's go ahead and listen to the first part of this song. Okay, so that's a melody that you are probably very familiar with. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to go back to that. We're going to play it again. And this time, I'm going to follow the cursor along with the music so that you can see that it's pretty much as simple. It's just a flow from left to right. And you'll be able to follow along just by watching my cursor. So here we go. All right, so it's a pretty simple process. Now, because these are grouped into groups of 3, we have 4 different groups here, and because of that, we could actually count to 4 and then repeat over here. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, indefinitely. Every time we come to one of these bars, we would go back to counting to 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and play this song one more time, and I'm going to count along with it for just a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so it's very obvious that it can just be broken down into groups of 4, both if you're just listening to it and counting, and then, of course, here in the actual music on the page, we can also write it into counts of 4, which is in fact what. So let's look at another example from Beethoven. It's also from the Moonlight Sonata. This one is the 3rd movement. And I want you to notice something before I go over to this page, which is that just by looking at the music, you can tell a little bit about it. For instance, between this one and this one, which one do you think is busier? Visually, it would seem like this one is busier, and in fact, that is the case with the recording. So let me play the 3rd movement of the Moonlight Sonata for you, and you'll see that it is, in fact, very busy and agitated. All right, so we have already gone off the screen from where we were from the very beginning there. That's how quickly that one progresses. So already we are beginning to see that just by looking at the music, we can tell whether it's more simple, like this one, or more complex. And we can also tell up here is a place where they have the tempo, and this says presto agitato, which is Italian for very agitated or very fast. And if we go back to the first one, you see it says adagio and sostenuto, which means a sustained and slow. Okay, and then there's this long Italian sentence here, which I have no idea what it means, but that just goes to show you that you don't need to be able to speak Italian or German, as you can see here. You just need to know a few different words as they come along. You know, like this says sempre pianissimo e senza soldini. Well, I don't know what senza soldini means, but I do know that sempre pianissimo is always really soft. So you don't necessarily have to learn or think that you have to learn every little thing. And obviously, if I wanted to go and look up this word, I could, but you know, I know what the Moonlight Sonata sounds like. I know what it's supposed to sound like. I've grown up hearing it. You've grown up hearing it. So I'm sure that from that, you would be able to gather exactly how to play it. That's one of the things about learning to read sheet music. It's wonderful to be able to read sheet music just from the music, but in our day and age of technology, it's also an amazing thing to go and listen to a recording of the sheet music. Now, don't worry, I'm going to teach you how to read the sheet music without having to listen to the recording, but that's always a good tool to have in your tool belt in case you need it. Go back to the 3rd movement of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. I'm going to play it again and follow along with the cursor, and you'll see how quickly it goes through this. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're off the page. And I'm going to do that one more time, and this time I'm going to count with it, and you'll be able to see, again, you know, we can break it up into counts of 4, just like we did on the other one. Even though it's much faster and there are a lot more notes here, we're still breaking up into counts of 4, and every time we go to 4, every time we hit 4 is when we come up to a line, whether it's this big thick one here, or if it's this smaller one, or any of these other smaller ones. And you can see that the music is neatly lined out so that these are aligned as well. Okay, so one more time, and then we'll move on. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let's go here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I wanted to let that finish because that's one of my favorite pieces. All right, so on to the basics of sheet music. So for this section, you will want to grab a piece of paper and a pencil and follow along. These are going to do a little bit of drawing here. Don't worry, you don't need to be an artist. You just need to follow my instructions. If it also helps you to draw straight lines, you can grab a ruler, but it doesn't have to be perfect straight. You can just eyeball it if you need to. So go ahead and pause the video for a second and grab those materials and then come back. So the first thing we're going to do is use the pencil and just draw a horizontal line. As you can see, this one goes all the way through. Okay. And after that, we want to draw a line that goes in between them, right in the middle, like this line here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to draw 4 ovals right in the middle of the line, and they're evenly spaced. So let me show you what that looks like. So I have zoomed in a little bit here. See, we have in this first part of the section 4 evenly spaced ovals where the line goes right through the middle of those ovals. And we're going to fill them in darkly like that, okay? And after you've got those 4 ovals done, do it also on the other side so that you've got this first section and this second section that have these 4 ovals that are filled in. And of course, these are going to be the note heads of the notes that we are drawing. So I'll give you just a moment to do that. And if you need more time, just go ahead and pause the video and continue to draw them. And then when you're caught up, go ahead and press play. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw stems or lines. They're called stems on the right side of these note heads. And so this is what that will look like. So we've got the stem here. It just comes directly up from the right side. I'll zoom in just a little bit here. And you can see that it just attaches to the side and goes straight up. It's pretty simple. So go ahead and do that for all of those. And lastly, what we're going to do is write in the numbers 1 through 4 underneath so that we can have a visual of which beat is which. Go ahead and write that in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we can see, of course, that at the 4 is at the end of this first section, and then after that line, it goes back to 1, just like it did in the actual sheet music that we were looking at just a second ago. All right, so if we wanted to count along with this or snap our fingers with this, all we have to do is count at a particular speed. So I'll just be going probably at this speed right here. So I'm snapping my fingers. You can hear that. So if I'm counting this, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's it. That's what this piece of sheet music tells us. It doesn't tell us anything about what note to play or what note to sing. It's just telling us about the rhythm. And you do see this kind of sheet music, by the way. Percussionists will have this type of sheet music. But anyway, it just tells us about the rhythm. So I am going to let the program play this, and you can go ahead and clap along with it. We're going to do that 2 more times because I know that was quick. Ready? 3, 2, 1. And one more time. This time I'm going to snap my fingers along with it. 3, 2, 1. And you'll have more of an opportunity to practice that in the practice video. But hopefully you're getting an idea now that, if we have the 4 counts in this one section. By the way, this is called a measure, just like a measuring cup. And it can also be called a bar. And this section, this little line here that divides the sections or divides the measures, is called a bar line, because these are also called bars. So the space here and everything in it is called a measure, and this space here is called a measure, and they're also known as bars, and then this is a bar line. So these notes that we have drawn here are actually called quarter notes, as in a quarter that you might spend on a piece of gum. And the reason they're called quarter notes is that in 4/4 time, which is what we're in now, and I'll explain that in another video, we're counting up to 4. And so if there's a quarter note here, that's 1 out of 4. Like this takes up one out of 4 beats in the measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. It takes out one of them. So that is 1/4 or 1/4. So what if we didn't want to play every beat? Like let's say we only wanted to clap or play these 3 beats and not this one. Well, what we would have to do is put in an item called a rest. And it looks like that. And this is actually a quarter rest because it also takes up only 1/4 of the measure in this case, or 1 beat. All right. So what this would sound like is that we would play 1, 2, 3, 4 would be a rest, and then we would play the other 3. So let me play that for you. And notice that the count stays steady and even though we stopped playing here. You'll notice that the green line keeps moving at the same pace as though we had played a note there. We're still going to count that at the same speed. All right? So here goes. Pretty simple, right? So if I wanted to make this one a rest and this one a rest, we would come up with the same notion, except now we're just playing every other beat. And just to drive that point home, I'm going to play it one more time, and then I'm going to count with it, and you'll hear that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, you'll get more practice time with this concept in the practice video. Well, that is the end of lesson 1 of an introduction to sheet music. So go ahead and open the practice video and run through that. And be sure that you run through it also before you go to bed tonight, because that would be it's a really good time, that little 10 or 15 minutes just before you go to bed, to lock in any kind of information that you want to lock in. You know, something about your memory function works better at that time. Also, when you first wake up in the morning. So if you get in the habit of doing these practice videos right before you go to bed, and also right after you learn the lesson, so that's twice a day, then you'll learn this stuff in no time. Again, I'm Andy from learningsheetmusic.com, and thanks for watching.